Break right into another, right? The Major League Baseball All-Star break and now the WNBA All-Star break is upon us with the Fever kind of limping into it, I guess, when you take the status of Caitlin Clark and then you combine with that last night's game against New York, which, Eddie, let's be real, Eddie Garrison, who does the pre- and post-game shows for the Indiana Fever broadcast here on 107.5 and 93.5 The Fan.
Are we never real, Jake?
That's a very good point.
It always bothers me when people's like, oh, I'm not going to lie to you. So are you lying to me every other time we speak then?
You know,
I got to tell you the truth. Are you never telling me the truth?
We were interviewing once on the air, and I said, I've got to be honest with you. And they said, oh, have you not been honest with me to this point? Okay, it's a figure of speech, right? The Fever, though, last night in losing to New York, yeah, that was one you would like to have to go into the break. And they had been playing pretty good basketball, but New York is a pretty darn good team, and that's who you're going to face now on Tuesday coming back out of the WNBA All-Star break. But last night, one of those games that just kind of, as you were watching it, you just kind of kept waiting for something to jumpstart, and eventually you just resign yourself to the fact it just was not their night, right?
It just felt like a scheduled loss, Jake. Like you play on the road at 8 o'clock the night before. Your tip times are, within 24 hours of one another. You have to get on a flight last night from Boston. Granted, it's not that long of a flight from Boston to Brooklyn. So, I mean, you're still getting in between 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning and not getting into sleep probably between 3 and 4. So it was probably a scheduled loss if you had to look at it that way. I know we've talked about that from time to time, at least with the Pacers in the NBA and playing in the second night of a back-to-back after, being on the West Coast or whatever. So, last night, just one of those games where you just felt like from the start that Indiana's chances of winning were already slim, considering they're facing the New York Liberty, who were entering last night 9-2 at home, now 10-2 after that win last night.
So the WNBA All-Star break is upon us. Caitlin Clark, we will find out what her availability is going to be or just where she is. Certainly you would think that, perhaps some of the activities she will be a spectator and supporter, but Stephanie White, the head coach of the Fever, going to join us just about 20 minutes from now. So we will find out that exact answer and critiquing where the Fever are. That today coming up in about 25 minutes. Matt Taylor going to join us on the program today. Again, it is very surreal for me. It is hard for me to grasp that we are now within a week of Colts camp getting underway. And I love summer. I love everything about it. I love the late sunsets. I love the ease of not having to put on multiple layers of clothing. I love the freedom of people going on vacation and enjoying family and friends. I love all of it. Poolside, the sounds of kids running around. I love everything about it.
Cracking open a Surfside.
Absolutely. But, Eddie, the thing to me that I have nothing against, obviously I love the NFL, right?
Right.
And I'm always excited for football season. I love college football.
You doing okay, by the way?
I looked it up, so I've gone through it. It's allergies, apparently. I have allergies, so I have this annoying dry cough.
Okay, just want to make sure you're right, Jake.
I am. I feel fine, actually. I just sound terrible.
See, I know you would ask the same of me if I was feeling if I sounded ill, because we're just that good of friends. We care about each other.
I certainly, if your eyes were puffy, I wouldn't notice. But
okay,
now. But the thing about training camp and just in general, it seems to me, and I know I'm going to be the old man yelling at clouds here, but now that we have in a lot of schools the year-round school format, I mean, I have friends, Warren Township, I think, resumes on Monday. What?
Oh.
Every year it seems further and further back that we're pushing this. So we're now into mid-July, and we're already advancing into autumn activity. And I love autumn as well. But that's the precursor to the polar vortex, gray skies, spitting rain, scraping the windshield. Ugh. No thanks. Can we just enjoy what we have while we have it, please? But it is going to be fun. And I did see an interesting story. I was scrolling, as I do often, looking at different things of storylines as it relates to Central Indiana. One of the storylines that I was reading, and I mean, I realize this is just merely the projection and prognostication of an individual or two or maybe a panel. But I think it was ESPN had a column on projections for the upcoming NFL draft, which is absurd because that's like 10 months from now. But players entering the college football season that could, in fact, be front runners or have a high probability of being the number one overall pick in the draft. And this is assuming that all players of eligibility, go ahead and declare themselves for the draft, which in the NIL era, I mean, who knows, right? Do you know who was actually listed? So it had your handicap of like the top 10 players that were believed to be. Now, this is absurd to mention it in the form of who is the number one pick in the draft, but it gives you a barometer of these are the top college football players in the season about to begin, okay? There was a player on there that I shouldn't say stunned me, but where I literally went, really? Okay. This is a positive. When you look, Eddie, right now at the upcoming college football season, the player clearly that all eyes are going to be on is Arch Manning. And I know that there's every Colts fan out there on planet Earth for 3 years now has been saying, I think what the Colts should do is just like not win games and then get in the sweepstakes for Arch Manning. That's the most common thing, right? Everybody, and it reminds me of the LeBron James sweepstakes of free agency when his contract was first up in Cleveland, and every franchise for 3 years out was like, they're actually saving up some salary space because they're going to try to make a run at LeBron James, but don't tell anybody. Like they were the first franchise to think of that. But so everybody thinks Arch Manning is the sure shot number one. But there are other names that are being thrown around, and I think with Arch Manning, they still, there's still some, okay, what do they have there? What kind of player is he going to be? A player that has emerged as one that is now spotlighted as, at the very least, a potential first-round pick is none other than the quarterback from the University of California, which is now the quarterback for Indiana University, Fernando Mendoza.
Mm-hmm.
They have Fernando Mendoza listed as a potential first-round and potentially even first overall pick. Outside chance they listed him at. But my point being, what does that say for Indiana and for Curt Cignetti's program? And maybe that says as much about Curt Cignetti as it does Mendoza. Because when you look at what he's been able to do with quarterbacks and just the offense in which they go and the aggressiveness with which they play, like IU football offensively and their mindset kind of feels like, say, what the Pacers did a year ago, where it's like they come out and it's just boom. It's fast, and they're going, and here we go. And they're up 7, and now they're up 14, and then, holy cow, they're up 17, now they're up 20, and they just go. And maybe that's what that particular style, and if they look at what Cignetti's been able to do with quarterbacks elsewhere, I mean, what Mendoza was able to do at California in 2 years, close to 70% completion percentage, mid-60s, 3,000 yards a year ago, and a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. You like all of that. But we're just not used to seeing, although yesterday we talked about Michael Penix in Atlanta, there have been quarterbacks that have come through here. But when you think about the cradle of quarterbacks, that's Purdue, not Indiana. But I thought it was exciting for Indiana to see that. And you dipped into your Rolodex to have somebody come on and talk a little IU football with us today. Correct, Eddie?
Of course, Jake. It's our friend Mike
Nizilik
from the Bloomington Herald-Times. Or the telephone or whatever it is.
It used to be I think it used to be the telephone, and it's now the Times, but I call it the Times telephone.
Now, Jake, how soon do we get a either from you or from somebody associated with, IU social media when there's a good game from Fernando Mendoza and the caption is well above the Mendoza line?
It's the first thing you think of, is it not? It's absolutely the first thing you think of. And the Mendoza line in baseball is what, actually? Is it 200 batting average?
Yeah, 200, yes.
Now, you've been looking at your computer with a smirk all day so far since we've started here. I want to know what's going on.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm. You look very shifty. I don't know that I trust that. I think you and that Matthew are on the chat.
Matthew not in the chat, no.
Okay.
Not today.
Fulton, you and Fulton over there chatting it up.
I did wish. Fulton thanked us for getting him on the show yesterday to help celebrate and kick off his birthday weekend.
Of course. Okay, the other story I want to get to, and this is one where I did a little homework on it. You never know in today's day with social media and with, so many different, obviously, podcasts and outlets, and I am not one. There are those that do this. I'm not one. I'm not one that automatically, when I see a story, looks to see how many followers or how many clicks or how many likes the person has as a barometer of trying to judge their validity. There have just been, I know how the cycle works. I know how the news gathering cycle works. I know how, like at ESPN, when an Adam Schefter or a Woj or now Shams is the one that like seemingly is always breaking it, I know how the hierarchy works. So I understand the process enough to know that I don't think anything should be immediately dismissed. And yesterday there was a column that caught my eye. There was a comment that caught my eye, a prediction that caught my eye. And it caught my eye in the form of, I don't think this is valid. I don't think this is real. I think it's clickbait. And it's probably there to generate interest, because a lot of times what you see is younger or smaller outlets that are trying to establish a name will float out something totally insane in hopes that it catches fire and it becomes the talking point that then has everybody talking. And has everybody talking about, like, well, this person says this, yada, yada, yada. And, I when I see a lot of those, I look at it and I go, okay, it's at least, sometimes you see something and you say, this is worth looking into to find out if it's valid. So there was a report yesterday that the Indiana Pacers were amongst a handful of teams, but perhaps the clubhouse leader in extending an offer to a promising talent whose career was sidelined by injury, who is ready for a comeback, and the Pacers are the team that may offer that opportunity. Now, Eddie, did you happen to see the story of which I'm talking?
I did.
Do you know which player I'm talking about?
I do.
And you do or don't think it would be a good idea?
Bad idea.
You think it's a bad idea? Why?
Because I don't think that player is in a position that the Pacers need help with.
Okay. Even if healthy. If 80% what we saw from the player before.
If that player is 80%, maybe. But like I said yesterday, when the conversation that you brought up of a potential buyout for Paul George, and if he would make sense with this group, I still lean on the side of no, because I want to see what Benedict Mathurin can do with
Understood.
a larger opportunity.
The player that we're talking about is Victor Oladipo. And when I saw this, I thought, there's no way. And the reason I thought there was no way is for a couple of reasons. Number one, Oladipo, and it's funny to go back and think about this, because sports are fleeting at times. And just when you think, like with the Pacers being right on the cusp of a championship and then suddenly seeing it disappear before your very eyes, you literally had to blink 3 times to get the like welding tear out of your eye and then refocus before you thought, okay, this is real. Because be honest. There was a point within the first 3 days after Game 7, where you as a Pacer fan woke up and you were like, okay, there has to be like, they're going to find out something where they get to come back and do that over again, right? Or that didn't really happen, right? He's not really out for a year, right? They were so close. And so you feel like it's going to be an eternity before they're back there again. But then you remind yourself how sports is so fleeting and how things can change so quickly and things can become old news overnight, like, for example, Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo was on T-shirts in this town. He was appearing at youth groups around town. He was standing at midcourt and doing the thing, pointing to the floor, saying, "This is my city," and it became a rallying cry. All of those things. He was the face of the Pacers and the toast of the town. And you kind of forget it. It's literally like a weekend party that you went to and had fun, but you just put it out of your mind because then you met somebody else. That's literally what it feels like. And yet,
bless you,
he's an incredibly gifted player athletically when he was healthy, and he was a very good player. But what happened in the end, bless you right back, what happened in the end,
thank you,
with Oladipo was the fact that it wasn't the injury. It was, I think, Oladipo became, and at the time, I think people didn't want to hear this per se, but I think there's some truth to it. Victor Oladipo, at the end of his time in Indiana, aside from the injury, became more concerned about, maybe not more, but equally as concerned about Victor Oladipo, the brand, as he did Victor Oladipo, the basketball player. And I think he started, yes, I know he's a talented musician, but I think he started kind of buying into the hype of, you're a multi-purpose star. You're a multi-talented facet and brand. And you can be going on The Masked Singer, and you can be releasing albums, and you can be down in Miami, you know, intermixing outside of basketball and showing your versatility as a personality. And when he got hurt and he chose to rehab in Miami, totally his prerogative, but during the playoffs against Boston, when he missed a flight to come back and be with the Pacers, and then they had to call basically and say, do you want to come back and be with your teammates? And it was like he begrudgingly did so. And then, of course, the stories coming out during Summer League where he was telling different franchises that, you know, get me to come play with you, because he felt like he'd outgrown Indiana. And he'd outgrown being a Pacer, and he'd outgrown being in Indianapolis. And then the injuries happened again. The injury happened again. And out of sight, out of mind. So when I saw all of this, I thought, Indiana, there's no way they're going to go back to that. And I thought also about the fact that Kevin Pritchard had said to me once, directly, and I'm nearly verbatim quoting, Victor Oladipo broke my heart. I did not think it was going to go that way, and Victor Oladipo broke my heart because they really thought he was going to be a cornerstone for the franchise. Even with the injury, like, you know, they were going to wait for him to come back and whatever else, but things just that I just mentioned all went awry. So when I heard this story, I thought, I think this is totally ill-advised, and it may still be, but I sniffed around. I put on my, who's the most famous detective, Eddie? I mean, Sherlock Holmes comes to mind, but that's like 150 years old. There's got to be something more recent, correct?
No idea.
Magnum P.I., also probably a dated reference, right?
Yeah.
Perry Mason, dated reference, although I think he was more of an attorney. But either way, I asked around, and what I found out was this. I was stunned. I was surprised by this. I thought for certain that when I sniffed around, the response back I was going to get was, yeah, that's absurd. And the response I got back was, well, that sounds like an interesting talking point. And I said, no, I know that, but, you know, if it's an interesting talking point, how valid is it? And basically what I was able to determine in asking around is, yes, when a player of Victor Oladipo's skill set, athleticism, experience is coming back from injury, it is absolutely worth overturning every rock for every player and looking around every corner to see where there may be a player that can help make your team better. And if Oladipo is coming off of that injury and is attempting a comeback, the perseverance and the determination that he would have to have just to come back from that injury, not once but twice, is such that it's intriguing when you match it with if he has 80% the athleticism he had before. And then you go back to think about how much he improved himself as a player between his, say, sophomore year at Indiana and second season in the NBA. And you say, okay, the amount of work that he had to put in to get to that point in that time period, if he matches that, then maybe, in fact, he is a player that has some gas in the tank, some fuel in the tank. And when I asked around, the response I got essentially was, look, don't read too far into it. Every team is going to be analyzing whether or not he can play. But I do think, while it wasn't said to me concretely, I do think that the Pacers are one of those that will examine it and explore it. Doesn't mean they're in deep talks with them. Doesn't mean that they are figuring out roster moves to make space or salary or anything else. But as opposed to the response of, yeah, this is a joke, it was more so like, yeah, you can't rule it out, which I found interesting. And I do think he is a guy that if he wants to come back and play, you know, he's probably Derrick Rose in the later, you know, Derrick Rose or Lonzo Ball, either one, once they came back from injury, were never quite the same, but they were still decent players. And they were players worth taking a look at. And, you know, obviously being on rosters, you know, a little bit different situation. But it was interesting to me. I will simply say that I didn't think that it was going to be that clear, and it looks like it's not totally dismissed. Stephanie White is the head coach of the Indiana Fever. They sit right now at 12-11. Last night, disappointment, 21-point loss to New York, but now it's All-Star break and Caitlin Clark, her availability or where she's going to be over the course of the weekend. We will ask that first and foremost when Stephanie White joins us next. The All-Star break has arrived for the WNBA and the Indiana Fever. The Fever stand at 12-11 after last night's 98-77 loss in New York. Joining us now on the guest line, head coach of the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, joins us on the program. Coach, always appreciate the time. I'll get right to this question, and that is Caitlin Clark, obviously the injury, not playing last night, and she, with the WNBA All-Star Game now coming to Indianapolis, great time to be in downtown Indy with all the festivities. Will she be a participant, or what can you tell us in terms of the latest on her injury?
Yeah, I don't know as far as decision-making for what's going to happen with All-Star. Certainly had a little bit of a setback and not able to compete last night for us in New York, but not sure right now where she will be with all the All-Star stuff. But I do have to tell you, Jake, I appreciate it, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but we were just talking about the Kenny Chesney concert, and Kenny Chesney was rolling when I was coming on, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Listen, what you're talking about here, Coach, is a steel trap in the memory, right? I can pull up all the little anecdotes, right? Yes, that.
Right.
Eddie Garrison actually gets credit for that. He said, "Hey, who was the country artist you mentioned?" And I said, "Kenny Chesney." She's a huge fan of Kenny Chesney. Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm a little offended that you weren't seemingly more excited about the Oasis concert that I told you about. But the crowd was huge for that. It was massive.
The crowd was huge. Now I don't know. You might have to sing me a song so I can see if I know.
Oh, nobody wants that.
No, you don't want me singing it. I can tell you that. Certainly you know Champagne Supernova, right?
I don't.
In a champagne supernova in the sky, someday you will find me. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound anything like it.
There's got to be one that I know though, right?
Well, oh yeah, they have several that you would know.
Okay.
Here's the one thing I'll tell you before we get back into basketball. Have you ever been to an outdoor, are you a concert? I know you mentioned Kenny Chesney. Typically, are you an outdoor concert, music festival kind of person?
Yeah, I like that. I haven't been to one in a long time, but yes.
Yeah, and it's during, typically those are during your season, right? So that makes it challenging. But so I did not know this. I mentioned this on the show, but so in England, and I think this is a soccer thing. Yeah. But as the concert began, and you had 80,000 people there, and I was kind of towards the back because I'd been pre-warned about this. But you start seeing cups flying through the air and all this, what you think is like people throwing beer through the air and celebrating. It's a huge celebration, right?
Right.
And then I was informed that the reason everybody was wearing bucket hats is because what they're throwing is not cups of beer, but rather what has to take place after you've had a lot of beer, but you don't want to lose your spot in the crowd.
No.
I kid you not. Now that I will admit, that seemed to me a bit odd, right?
Yeah, that seems a little.
So if you're going to go to a Kenny Chesney concert in England per se, towards the back on the lawn is the place to be. That is the point.
Got it. Yeah, that's good advice.
Hey, Coach. So, how is your team different without Caitlin Clark? And that sounds like I'm trying to lead you down some sort of a hot take. It's not that. It's the fact that she is a great player. But with a great player like that, and we've talked about this a little bit, sometimes I think with great players, you just have a natural tendency for others to get kind of caught in that web of watching to see what they're going to do. And then the gears in the way that they run without that player on the floor, that operates differently in what way that you've been able to see?
Well, first of all, the gravity that she brings because of who she is. I mean, she's the top of every scouting report, so every defensive game plan is geared towards her. And so that makes everybody else's life a little bit easier. She gets them the ball. They're not, they might be second or third or fourth on the scouting report, not number one. And so without her on the floor, then you look at Kelsey or AB being 1-2 on the scouting report, and everybody else, you just have to play us differently. So I think for us, that the things that we run are different. Not as geared towards putting Caitlin in position to be playmaker, right? So we've got to get the ball moving differently. We spread the floor differently. We've got to use different lineups and put people in position to attack differently because of what they see with her on the floor and without her on the floor. And so certainly from that perspective, we try to get the ball side to side, try to get multiple players in different kinds of positions because it's not naturally created by what Caitlin does and the gravity that she pulls from the defense.
If you were to give out midterm grades right now And, I'm sure from a coaching standpoint, you take this opportunity to kind of sit back and just analyze where you guys are at essentially almost exactly the halfway point. An area where you would give your team an A would be where?
Resilience. I think we've had a lot of stuff thrown our way, and I think this team's been a resilient group. I think they've been flexible in being able to handle lots of different things, players in and out, injuries, rotations, all those kinds of things that have been happening throughout the course of the season, and they've been resilient.
Okay, an area where you would give I'll say a C, and then as the teacher at the bottom where you say they simply have not applied themselves. I got that a lot on report cards, right? Like Jake can do better but did not apply himself. The area that you would grade there would be what?
Yeah, and I don't know if I would say application as much as consistency. I would say our defensive execution. Or early in the year when we had coming out of training camp, I think we did a really good job of consistency in our defensive coverages, and then our defensive execution and making things difficult. And then we've hit some lulls. Just like everything, players and opponents get a beat on what you're doing, and then they adjust, and we have to be able to adjust. And our ability to maintain consistency in how we defend, I would say that's probably the one I would give a C.
You played. For that matter, you have played and coached in basically the same amount of games in the WNBA, okay? 145 roughly on both sides of it, give or take a couple of games. At this point in your career, do you kind of feel like you have seen and been able to anticipate all areas of the game of basketball in the WNBA and tweaks that can be made and adjustments that can be made, or is this a game that continues to present things that are a new challenge that you've not seen before?
Yeah, I think as far as the game, certainly have a lot of experience and seen a lot of different things. I think the area that's different is that the players, again, are better than they've ever been, and so you might have in the past been focused on a big three. Now it's different. The ways that the versatility of players are different, and so you're able to make quicker adjustments. Opponents are able to make quicker adjustments. We have to make quicker adjustments. The game is changing. Now, the actions aren't necessarily all changing, but the game is changing, and how it flows is different. The pace is different. So, all that realm, you've never, quote unquote, arrived in having seen everything. It's constantly going to constantly going to have to be a chess match. You don't play checkers anymore. You're playing chess, and you've got to be able to stay ahead of the curve. You got to be able to anticipate what's coming. Got to be able to make quick adjustments. And you have to have a group that's able to do that too. I think we're a team that while we've got some veterans on our team, we're still young in this together, and it's still a team that needs a lot of reps at the things that we're doing. And I think each year that we start to build, and you see experience in how quickly we need to make adjustments and being able to do that in live settings without having to have reps, I think we're going to get there in the next couple of years for sure.
I think when we look at the NBA All-Star Game being in Indianapolis, and it was a wonderful showcase not only for the city and for the Pacers franchise, but also I was happy in that for Tyrese Halliburton because it was kind of his introduction as a basketball star to the rest of the country, and it all came very quickly. But I do think that there was some fatigue that came from that, understandably. For Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, Coach Stephanie White, our guest here on the guest line, is there any, concern, or do you have to handle anything in terms of just the inevitability of them kind of playing host for our city during this event that takes place? But then you got to turn around and play again on Tuesday. So do you have to kind of wade through everything that takes place with that?
You do, and whether being an all-star in general is taxing because of all of the responsibilities, all of the hoopla, all of everything that they're being pulled in a lot of different directions. And then yes, add on being in our host city, wanting to put on a show for our home fans and WNBA fans, and the extra demands on your time and attention. So a lot of early mornings, a lot of late nights, a lot of being spread super thin. And so yes, you really do worry about that. And when our team returns to practice on Sunday, those guys will not be practicing, not be participating, trying to give them at least a day to recuperate before we got to get back at it. So that is always a concern with All-Stars, and it gets amplified when it's in your home city.
Is it for you different with this being in Indianapolis in terms of responsibilities that could take you away from team analysis than if, say, the All-Star game was in, San Antonio or Dallas or et cetera?
Yeah, it is. I mean, same thing with the players. A lot more responsibilities in terms of appearances and things like that. But at the same time, that's one of the things that makes it fun. I mean, being a part of or seeing certainly the NBA All-Star here. We take great pride in Indiana in putting on events. We take great pride in the fans that we have and that love basketball and being able to showcase this event. It's a small price to pay to be able to show off what the city of Indianapolis, what the state of Indiana, what our organization is all about when it comes to women's sports.
Okay, for those that are just joining, Coach Stephanie White, our guest from the Indiana Fever, to rehash it, for those that are just joining, tell me again the status of Caitlin Clark and what we know about the injury as it stands right now.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously Caitlin didn't play last night in New York, and we're going to be in the day-to-day evaluation. I don't know the status of her for All-Star. That's a team decision with her, with our medical staff, with her support staff as well. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. Have the ear to the ground. But right now, I think the priority for us is to make sure. Again, I feel like we've said this every time, but to make sure that Caitlin is ready to go for the long haul. And these soft tissue injuries, and she's had multiple ones now, are tricky. They're tricky, and to be able to take care of them in season is difficult. So certainly, we want C to be able to enjoy All-Star in the state of Indiana. We want fans to be able to enjoy Caitlin in All-Star in the state of Indiana. But at the same time, we've got to be smart about long-term and throughout the course of the rest of the season.
Is part of the trick of those injuries the fact that they can, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying this is the case here. I don't know that we would even know that, but can a soft tissue injury oftentimes lead to another because while you don't even realize it, your body is now triggering a different area that has not been used a lot, and therefore you get a fatigue of that tissue, that muscle, etc., and then it becomes something you're kind of chasing a tiger by the tail?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume so. Look, I'm not a doctor either, and I stay in my lane. I just do what they tell me to do when it comes to, hey, can they play? Can they not play? What do we have to monitor? But at the same time, being a former athlete who's had a number of injuries, compensation happens. Mechanics change. And when you're talking about soft tissue injuries, especially in your lower body, the way that you load, the way that you explode, acceleration, deceleration, lateral movement, all of those things matter. And it's tricky. I think it gets even trickier when you've had multiple, and it's not exactly like it's been the same soft tissue injury. So I do think for us, it's continuing to stay the course in treatment, continuing to make sure that we're giving her the best possible opportunity to rest, recover, to heal, and maintain. And sometimes with this, it just takes rest. And knowing that we're in the middle of a season, we've got to do our due diligence when it comes to managing it.
Okay, lastly, if it's not Kenny Chesney, next time we talk, the musician that you would like to kind of bring you in would be who?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Let's see. If it's not Kenny, let's talk, gosh, I don't know I haven't really had a playlist most recently. But I do love Adele. I did see Adele in Vegas last year as well. So can you find some Adele?
Yeah, Adele is an unbelievable performer.
Anything to make you forget that I haven't seen Shawshank, so yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Still hasn't seen it yet. Can you believe that?
Listen, if I'm coming on next week, you got to at some point you got to watch that before next week.
Here's the problem,
your analysis.
Coach. Here's the problem. I had flippantly told Eddie a while ago that I would invite him over for a Shawshank viewing party, which means now that I'm obligated and on the hook to have him actually come over to my residence and hang out with me for 2.5 hours. And so, therefore, that's the reason he has yet to see Shawshank. It is nice of him to wait for that moment. Now, lastly, you have not heard this song before. Here we go. If you can hear it, this is Champagne Supernova by Oasis. Let's see. Okay, yes or no?
No, but are they this group that sings Wonderwall?
Yes.
Oh, I know that. I know Wonderwall. Yes.
See,
Okay.
the only problem is Wonderwall is like the song that, I mean, Wonderwall is a song that if you're a huge fan, that's kind of like okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is a great song. It's a great song.
But that's the one I know. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there are two guys that are brothers and forever they hated each other, and they're both completely annoying pukes, but they're great musicians, right?
That's awesome.
And you just have to make sure that you bring an umbrella if you go see them in concert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no question.
Coach, appreciate it as always. If you can, try to enjoy the All-Star break, soak it in, and we will certainly talk to you again as you guys resume play again.
Will do. Thanks, Jake.
All right, Stephanie White joining us on the guest line. We come back. There's a huge story that took place in Westfield of global impact. Did you see this, Eddie?
I have not seen this.
Some guy in Westfield is
yes.
in some hot water. I mean, hot water, scalding hot. I shouldn't say scalding. That's a little bit, but very hot water. And I knew nothing about this at all until I saw the story and was like, what in the world? But I don't find it surprising. I'll illuminate next. Now, I should probably apologize. I'll be honest. This story that took place in Westfield, I didn't know a lot about it until it was brought to my attention earlier today, and I was not aware of what I think is an unconfirmed, at least officially, conclusion to it, which is a tragic one. But I'm going to read to you simply what I saw from a national publication yesterday, actually earlier today. Just an hour ago, this story came out from CBS Sports. Police in Westfield, Indiana, conducted 2 raids on warehouses this week as part of a counterfeit sports memorabilia investigation alongside the FBI. And in that, this is pretty amazing. And I understand, Eddie, you've been inside my place as you've cat sat for me a few times, and you see, I don't have a lot of sports memorabilia per se, but I have a couple of different things that I have accumulated through just my jobs or different events that I've been a part of, right?
I was throwing something away, and I noticed on the floor there was a Jeff George card. I was like, no, Jake, why would this be hidden on the floor?
Somebody gave me recently gave me a Jeff George first-round pick football card, I guess because they know I'm friends with Jeff George. And that
so I picked it up, and I put it with your stuff. That was like, hey, Jake.
Well, that was since you mentioned that was in a bag from work because somebody had given it to me in a work setting, and then when I was clearing out my bag to use it for my trip, I put the contents of my bag over there on that area. But thank you for picking that up. But yes,
no problem.
The sports memorabilia thing.
Now, if that doesn't show you I'm just a stand-up guy, Jake, and didn't take it myself into a pawn shop.
The point, memorabilia in general, and cards and those things. And when I was growing up, I collected a ton of baseball cards, and autographs, in particular when I was a kid, were just such a coveted thing. But I also always kind of felt like an autograph, the point of an autograph is for it to be a keepsake of a moment you had to kind of remember or verify that your life and that person's life intersected at one time and you had a personal interaction with them.
Kind of like your Tony Gwynn thing?
Correct. So I've got that picture of Tony Gwynn, and then, it's signed as a keepsake of this is when I met Tony Gwynn, and he was just such a gem of a human. Now, that's my own personal feeling on it. I get that it has become a billion-dollar business, and there are stores all over the place that you can walk into and buy the autograph of somebody. And usually those have a photo that accompanies it of where you see a picture of the person signing whatever it is for verification. There's a whole part of that. But without going down the rabbit hole of the industry itself or the validity thereof, according to this story, a gentleman by the name of Brett Lemieux, a sports collectibles dealer who ran Mr. Man Cave, after this raid took place, he posted a lengthy post on Facebook saying the following, quote, "It was an addiction. How many items can I sell and give a front of a huge company? I did it for years. I purchased millions of dollars of legit items, mixed it until," and then it says name withheld, "found the hologram connect. Then I had the bankroll to buy even more and do more signings. Every one item from a signing turned into 10,000, and it was certified 90% of the Mahomes and Aaron Judge on the market are sold by me. Basically, every autograph sold in the last 25 years, you should have looked at it. It's fake, and someone sold it to you other than me. I wish I had the exact dollar number of money taken in from this, and I'll go to my grave never knowing. I kept this secret from everyone." He later went on to say, after the raid, in which $500 to $700 million worth of fake merchandise apparently was part of this raid, he said, "The building was seized and I let it happen. The run is done. There's over $500 to $700 million in value of holograms and cards in there. Let that sink in. Every company I've touched is now my expletive. That was my goal. Once you came at me or spoke my name, I went after you and your company directly, intentionally." Now, the federal investigation scheme, when they raided the building, there is word now, although it has not been officially confirmed by officials, that Brett Lemieux may have taken his life, which is obviously tragic. And when I said he's in hot water, I didn't realize that latest anecdote to this story. But it is, in today's day, you know, it is bizarre that somebody out of Westfield, Indiana could have this empire of, look, I go out and I get a Patrick Mahomes autograph or I get an Aaron Judge autograph, and then I have a network through, whether it be through, I mean, this stuff is well beyond my intellectual capability, but through holograms and forgeries and everything else, you now have mass production of these autographs that people are paying very good money on the internet for, that they believe to be real. And in fact, they were all just being made out of a warehouse in Westfield, Indiana, to the tune of $500 million. And then you've got to wonder the implication of this, what that means for the value of other legitimate companies that are selling sports memorabilia. You see them in malls, you see them in stores, you see them in Vegas and the casinos. You know, is this going to plummet the value of those memorabilia and signed items because people are going to say to themselves, well, if one guy did it, how do I know 100 didn't? Very bizarre story. I guess the lesson is if you're going to get the signature of somebody out in public, make sure you get a photo of it at the very least. But totally bizarre, no question. Colts in camp coming up starting in a week. Matt Taylor joins us next. 1 o'clock hour underway in Indianapolis. For that matter, the 1 o'clock hour is underway everywhere in the Eastern time zone. My name is Jake Query. Eddie Garrison, you also hear on this program. We're going to talk to Matt Taylor in just a second, but before we do so, Eddie, the breaking news sounder, please. This statement just released by Caitlin Clark of the Indiana Fever, quote, "I'm so excited for Indy to host WNBA All-Star this weekend. I want to thank the Indianapolis Host Committee and all of the people that have put endless work in over the past year to put this event together. I know this will be the best All-Star yet. I'm incredibly sad and disappointed to say I cannot participate in the three-point contest or the All-Star game. I have to rest my body. I will still be at Gainbridge Fieldhouse for all the action, and I'm looking forward to helping Sandy coach our team to a win. Can't wait to see you all out there," end quote from Caitlin Clark. So there you go, what we assumed to be the case. Caitlin Clark, who is still now working with that right leg injury, the soft tissue that Stephanie White had said can be, quote, tricky, will not be a participant in All-Star activities this coming weekend in Indianapolis for the WNBA All-Star game. Once that game and that event takes place in Indianapolis, then we get into next week and things begin to shift towards Colts training camp, which gets underway in Grand Park in the upcoming week. Matt Taylor is the radio voice of the Indianapolis Colts and joins us, and I'm sure he's thrilled to be doing so, to kick off what is going to be the beginning of the new season for the Colts. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, Jake. Good to be with you, man.
How was the offseason, by the way?
It was good. It was certainly ups and downs, filled with a lot of news and events with the quarterback competition and the draftings, Tyler Warren. So I think the biggest question I get asked from people that meet me for the first time, or I see them at the grocery store or whatever, and I talk to people, they always ask, "What do you do in the off season?" And I always just sort of laugh, because there is no off season. I mean, there's peaks and valleys to it for sure. It's a different speed, but we've talked about this before in the past. The NFL has done such a terrific job of marketing itself and spacing out their off-season events so that they never fully go away. And so thus there's always something to talk about. There's always content to produce. It keeps me gainfully employed the entire year, which I am very happy about, and it just keeps us going. So it's the 800-pound gorilla that's about ready to be let out of its cage, and we're going to get this season going.
Okay, let's begin with Tyler Warren, because I feel like, at least certainly on this show, I'm guilty of not talking about that enough, probably, because he is a dynamic tight end, or certainly looks to be. We don't know how it translates, but the prognostication is that he is going to be a very good tight end in the NFL. When you look at, Matt, Tyler Warren and the way Shane Steichen's going to want to use him, do you believe that, and I don't know how to word this, see if this makes sense, that Tyler Warren is such a skill set that you put him in there to help out and facilitate and give a safety net to the quarterback that is going to be getting that job? Or is it more so that you want to get a quarterback that can then be a safety net for Tyler Warren because he's a young player you're trying to develop? Which one truly do you think they feel is important to feed the other?
Yeah, I think Tyler Warren is going to complement no matter who plays quarterback, either one of those guys, Richardson or Daniel Jones. I think Tyler Warren's presence in this offense is going to mean everything, because he can make plays. He's a playmaker on his own, but his presence on the field stresses the defense. You have to account for things that Tyler Warren can do potentially that other tight ends can't. And so that's going to open up a lot of other things for different players elsewhere on offense. I mean, the Colts last year had 3 receivers over 800 yards. That's pretty remarkable. That hadn't been done by the Colts since, I think, 2004, and it hadn't been done in the NFL since 2021. And the reason why I bring that up is I don't necessarily think that's going to happen this year, because Warren's going to eat into those numbers. Tyler Warren's going to be a big part of this offense, both in the passing game as a target, but also a guy that he's more than adequate, and that's probably selling him short in the running game as a blocker. So his presence on the field is not going to tip the Colts' hand as to what they're doing, run or pass, because of how versatile that he is. And another thing that I think you have to consider when you bring up Tyler Warren on this team is that I think he's going to play a lot of snaps right away. And you've got Mo Alley Cox coming back in free agency, so he's going to be part of this team. I just think it might be one of those things where the Colts are really deep at other positions, like wide receiver, running back. Maybe you keep 4 running backs. Maybe you keep 6 defensive backs. Maybe you keep 10 offensive linemen. If you do those things, there's going to be inevitably a position on the team that feels that crunch. And I think that could be possibly tight end, right? We're a long way from knowing that, but I just think Tyler Warren's presence here means that he's going to play a lot, and that might be that tight end. Maybe instead of keeping 4 tight ends, maybe you keep only 3, and then there's going to be a battle, big-time battle in the back end of the roster at that spot between guys like Will Mallory and Drew Ogletree, and then you got Jelani Woods coming back. He hadn't played a snap in each of the last 2 seasons. So I think it's going to be a big fight there, but I think Tyler Warren's presence on this team is going to mean so much for every aspect of the offense. And, I don't know what the production is going to be, stat line-wise at the end of the season. I'm sort of hesitant to say it's going to be a monster year, where he's over 500-600 yards. But I just think what you're going to see out of him is like Rob Gronkowski-like, where every game he's catching 3 to 4 balls, and they're impactful catches. They're huge third down conversions, or they get you into the red zone, or they get you into a scoring position, or he scores a touchdown. I think he's going to be that big for this offense in terms of clutch, pivotal, timely catches as a playmaker.
Will they go a lot of 2 tight end sets? And the reason I ask it, Matt, is because, Mo Alley Cox, and for that matter, Jelani Woods, both, are guys that I think the Colts have had patience with is the wrong way of saying it. But I think at times we were expecting Mo Alley Cox to be like this Marcus Pollard kind of a tight end or a Kobe Fleener type of tight end. And in reality, he's a bigger version of a Jack Doyle, meaning like more of like a pillar blocking tight end. And maybe now we can finally see the true reality of Mo Alley Cox's contribution, because then you got another guy that can run free and get in space at the tight end position. But that would require 2 tight ends on the field at the same time. Will they do that?
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to do that. Now, how much, I don't know. I mean, I think incorporating tight ends in this offense more and hitting more completions in the middle of the field and the intermediate part of the passing game is the biggest emphasis that this coaching staff on offense has had for itself the entire offseason. So if you go back and you watch those OTA practices back in the spring, I mean, before, he was shut down with the aggravation to the shoulder, Anthony Richardson was consistently hitting tight ends more often in the spring, and then Daniel Jones was too. And, if Daniel Jones is the quarterback of this team, hypothetically, week 1 and for the majority of the season, again, hypothetically, I mean, tight ends are going to flourish. I mean, those guys are going to catch, whatever it is, 70, 80 passes. If Anthony Richardson is the quarterback, there's a little bit more of an unknown there in the regular season just because we haven't seen it, right? I mean, Anthony Richardson started 10 games last year and completed only 18 passes to a tight end. So, I came on this show, before the draft, and we were talking about, hot takes or things you feel good about. I think the tight ends last year, they caught a lot of flack that they didn't necessarily deserve because of the quarterback inconsistencies around them.
Right.
I think those guys, the perception is, well, they stink. They're not very good. They need to upgrade there. And, here comes Tyler Warren to save the day. I mean, Will Mallory can play. Drew Ogletree is incredibly athletic. He can play. I think a lot of other things around them went into their lack of contributions within the offense. And then as it relates to Mo Alley Cox, not to make an excuse for him, but he's had like 10 different quarterbacks that he's had to deal with since he joined the team in 2017. A lot of injuries, a lot of quarterback carousel. I mean, a lot of people just peg him now as a great blocking tight end, which he is, but I think he's definitely more than that. And I think you're going to see, whether it's him or these other tight ends outside of Tyler Warren this upcoming season, they're going to be much more involved in this offense because Shane Steichen wants it to be that way. And I think it's been a huge emphasis all off season to get better production and consistency in the passing game from the quarterbacks and from the tight ends in the middle of the field.
Well, I think a good way to analyze it, Matt Taylor, our guest, the voice of the Colts, joining us here on Query Company. If we'll take, obviously, Tyler Warren out of this equation, okay? But the rest of that tight end room, if they were all made available right now as free agents, which one is the first one that is snatched up by another NFL franchise?
Oh, good question. I mean, I still think there's a huge market for Mo Alley-Cox because of what he can do in the running game. And every team needs to run the ball, especially if you have playoff aspirations. You get in bad weather in December and January. I mean, having an extension of your offensive line as a tight end like him, that's huge. I guess gun to head, I would probably put if we're not going to include Tyler Warren, right?
That's what I mean.
Everybody,
yeah, not including Tyler Warren, yeah.
I would probably say Drew Ogletree too in that mix as well. I mean, Jelani Woods has got a ton of question marks around him just because of his absence the last 2 years. I'm a big believer in Ogletree. I mean, he's built like a freaking tree, man. I mean, he's like 6'6", and he's got a huge, wingspan. He's got a lot of upper body strength. I mean, he's just former basketball player. It's been well chronicled too. I mean, he's just a freak athlete. So I just think his potential hasn't been fully tapped into as well. And I'm just excited for these guys that hopefully they get some more quarterback consistency around them this year from either one of those guys so they can flourish and prove some people wrong that they're better players than people think that they are.
Matt Taylor, our guest. Matt, let's talk about the defense for a second here. When you have a new defensive coordinator now, I'm going to ask you to pick a player in two different areas here, okay? Player number one, the Colts defender that it does not matter how new a system may be, his skill set immediately transfers to whatever system a defensive coordinator is going to put in. That player is who?
Can I give you two?
Yep.
Because as you were talking there, the two guys that popped in were DeForest Buckner, because no matter what system he's in, he is so good. He's going to flourish and he's going to make an impact. And I mean, I looked it up the other day. He's recorded at least 6.5 sacks in 7 straight seasons. Like, he's the only defensive tackle in the NFL that has produced that amount of consistency. And last year he missed 5 games. He had a high ankle sprain and still got that done. So no matter what kind of system he's in, defensive tackle wise, he's going to wreak havoc. And he is crucial to the Colts' success in stopping the run and getting interior pass rush on the quarterback in the pocket. The second guy, as you were talking, that popped in my head was Charvarius Ward, because the Colts are going to ask him to do a lot of press man-to-man. He's going to flourish there. He's going to potentially take away one half the field at the very least. And then his max potential is that he can follow another team's top weapon wide receiver-wise all over the field and try to take away a Nico Collins in the division or a Brian Thomas Jr. or, last year Justin Jefferson hurt the Colts. That's been sort of a hallmark problem defensively for the Colts the last couple of years, and it's frustrating, is that going into these games who the top weapons are. You know who you have to stop, and too many times consistently the other team's top playmaker would kill the Colts, have a big game, and the Colts would lose. So that's what they're trying to fix. I think they're going to blitz a little bit more, be a little more aggressive, try to dictate things more to the offense. But Charvarius Ward, I think, can flourish in any sort of defense because he's so good. Hey, press man-to-man. Don't let him off the line of scrimmage. Make the quarterback look off of that coverage immediately because he knows, hey, you can't throw it to me. You can't throw it to your guy that I'm on because I'm going to get a pass defense or I'm going to get an interception or I'm going to tip the ball up in the air and create a takeaway. I think those two guys are that good at their particular positions that no matter the defense, they'd have a huge impact.
Okay, now I'd like to know the defender that is a returning player for the Colts that you are most curious to see if their previous administration production was scheme dependent or whether or not they are in fact a player that, under a new scheme, they're going to have the same level of production, but you're not totally sure, and therefore you want to wait and see.
Yeah, it's funny you bring this up because we were talking about this just the other day. There is a boatload of key players on this Colts team right now that are going to be unrestricted free agents next offseason or this upcoming winter, right? And on that list was Nick Cross. And he had a fantastic season last year. I think he was very close to turning into the player just because he has a lot of upside. I say very close because he still can hit it. He can still get better, but very close to hitting the mark for the player that the Colts drafted him to be. He started all 17 games, played a boatload of snaps, and it was a I don't want to say a bounce back season, but again a prove it season on his part after kind of having a rocky beginning to his NFL career in his first 2 years with the Colts. He had the 8th most sacks in the NFL. He was second in the NFL in tackles, 8th most tackles, 2nd most tackles in the NFL among safeties. So he just had a really good season. And changing defenses for a guy like him, where he's going to be asked to probably do a little bit more, line up in different places, because it's all about disguise, right? It's all about creating a little bit of hesitancy in the secondary for opposing quarterbacks to create that little bit of a shadow of a doubt that they don't know exactly what they're looking at the snap of the ball. So he's going to be asked to do a lot. And so, kind of figuring out his long-term future with the Colts is a little bit undecided until we see all that he can do in this defense. And I think pairing him up with a veteran like Cam Bynum, who's going to be here for the next 4 years, that's very enticing. There's a lot of intrigue there. But just what are we going to see from Nick Cross this year in a new system is probably he would be the player I would identify probably the most that I'm looking forward to seeing just how much potential there is for a player of his skill set and all that he can do in a system where they want to maximize all that he can do because he's a good player and Lou Anarumo wants to, basically have it be a hodgepodge of looks in the back end to confuse quarterbacks.
Well, he strikes me, Nick Cross strikes me as a guy, Matt Taylor, that, when he was drafted, he was still young and pretty raw, but his athleticism was so rich that it was really intriguing. And then it was a matter of him becoming instinctive. And it feels like we're starting to finally see, not finally, but because he's a young guy still, but the instinctive nature of it now, when you pair it with what already was there from an athleticism standpoint, that's why he's intriguing, right? Because you think, okay, now we might be getting into something here.
100%. And it's not hyperbole. I mean, when he was drafted and when he started week 1 as a rookie in 2023, or 22, I should say, I mean, he was literally the youngest player in the NFL. He was the youngest player to ever start a game in a Colts uniform. And so there was a lot of expectations put on his shoulders because, like you said, he's so athletic and, sky's the limit on what he can do. But it was just, getting acclimated to life in the NFL as, a 20-year-old or a 21-year-old. I mean, think about if you had that amount of responsibility as a basically a teenager. I mean, I don't know if I could have handled that. And so I think him last year turning into the guy, a little bit more maturity, a little more wisdom, and you used a great word there, in instinct, becoming more of an instinctual player. That's huge. Experience is everything, and he certainly had that last year to receive that. And so, pairing him up with his skill set and his versatility in the secondary with this defense under Lou Anarumo is going to be really exciting to see just all the different things they can do with him.
Matt, my only instinct in life is I have a natural instinct of seeing when other people are instinctive, but other than that, I have zero skill set, just so you know. Right?
So your instinct is to decide whether or not I'm instinctive.
Correct. That's exactly correct. Other than that, I have no skill set. I'm raw, We'll be out there for a lot of training camp. Look forward to seeing you out there, Matt, and hanging out and kind of observing everything as it goes along. And I also am going to give myself and you as well. We can share it if you'd like, but we both get a Marconi for just having done 20 minutes and not discussing Anthony Richardson.
I know. I was waiting for it, man. I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, we're talking about Nick Cross. We're talking about the tight ends. Where are we going with this?
Plenty of time to get to quarterback. But we do know that Stephen Holder is reporting that the Colts now believe that whatever setback Anthony Richardson had, that the time off was good and that his shoulder will be good to go for the start of training camp. So we have that as well for the quarterback competition with Daniel Jones. We'll watch all of it unfold. Should be fun, Matt. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you out there.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend.
All right, Matt Taylor joining us on the guest line here. I had mentioned earlier in the program when it comes to the NFL, one of the names that is suddenly starting to be kind of whispered about as a potential, at the very least, first-round pick in the upcoming NFL draft, meaning a year from now. And that's absurd to speculate, except for that it gives you a good barometer as to who is anticipated to being a game changer at the collegiate level in the upcoming season. And one of those is a guy that has new surroundings, but they are surroundings familiar to all of us. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about a guy that's going to be the beat writer for his particular team. We'll do it next. Just talked to Matt Taylor, meaning that football season is upon us, at least from a training camp standpoint. And before you know it, we're going to be talking about, you always get those early September games that feel kind of meaningless, and your team gets out, they're playing well, and before you know it, you're like, wait a minute, they're 4-0? Are they really 6-0? They're 8-0? They're 10-0? And then all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, why not Indiana? That might actually make for a good T-shirt for football season. We shall see. Joining us now to talk about the Hoosiers and how they bounce back from, not bounce back, but carry on from what was a dream season a year ago. He is with the Bloomington Herald. I'm hoping I get this right. Bloomington Herald Times. Mike
Nizilik
joins us on the guest line. Mike, and I mean this with all due respect, I did get the name of the newspaper correct, right? Because I've told you that's a mental hurdle for me because I still want to say telephone.
Yes, you did a good job, and you didn't need a prompt, so you're all set.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, let's begin with this. You had this story, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then, as sometimes is the case, and it's unfortunate, but those of us that locally cover a team have something out there, and we report it, and we do everything we're supposed to do, and then nationally it gets picked up, and everybody acts like it's new news. That was kind of the deal with this change in schedule involving Indiana and Virginia. Tell us what it was that you reported a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, very simple. I mean, basically, Indiana canceled the series. Wanted to pull out, and we'll have to pay a exit fee, $500,000 to sort of do that. And then they had, because there was a home-and-home series against UVA in 2027 and 2028. And so basically, they've reshaped, basically going back to that Louisville series when they canceled kind of the second of the 3 games that they had scheduled for that. They've kind of reshaped their schedule, kind of going forward. And they added a trio of kind of lesser opponents, in the next couple of years as well. And obviously, look, I mean, they're trying to make it a little easier on themselves. And so, they've obviously the non-conference schedule now lacking Power 4 opponents or caliber opponents until Notre Dame. Right now, that series is still in the books for 2030 and 2031.
Now, let me tell you how I interpreted this, and then you tell me if it's not even in the ballpark of accurate, right? But I looked at it as Indiana saying, when it comes to a Virginia, if you're going to go outside conference and play games against another Power 5, then you need it to be one that if you were to win it, it gets you serious street cred. I'll use that for lack of a better phrase. And if you lose it, it doesn't hurt you a whole lot. And with no disrespect to Virginia, and they certainly could probably say the same about Indiana, I don't know that there's a lot of benefit by beating Virginia, but yet there are people that could say that it's a drawback or a knock on you that you were defeated by Virginia in the pre-conference. And I think now with the Big Ten making with the college football playoff their determination of, look, we want X number of teams that are guaranteed, et cetera, this screams to me, Mike, of Indiana saying we don't need pre-conference significant wins because we have the opportunity to get enough of them in the Big Ten. So we want to enter the conference healthy and rolling as opposed to battle-tested. Any of that true in terms of the mindset?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look, there's little incentive right now for the Big Ten to schedule those games. And so, and I think the key, one of the keys that I think has been discussed is the fact that they're playing, and when I brought this topic up with Scott Dolson, Indiana's AD, and Kurt Zanetti, obviously the coach, look, they play 9 conference games, and not every conference is doing that. So you have an extra game against a Power 4 opponent built into your schedule that the SEC and the ACC don't. So when they're saying, look, it's not apples to apples. So when they get to us, we can have the discussion of what these non-conference schedules look like, or what these schedules overall look like. And so they're saying, our schedules are going to be formidable just on that basis alone. And I think there is some acknowledgement, look, last year's schedule was unique in the sense that, they got everybody sort of on a down year outside of, Ohio State, that was just a unique kind of circumstance, and those happen from time to time where you kind of just the scheduling gods kind of benefit you, and they've been sort of on the opposite end of in this in recent years where they've had to play just like all those hard teams sort of in the division they had. So I think that they look at it, and you look at this year's schedule, and you can kind of see what the point is. I mean, they got some tough road games, Iowa, Oregon, Penn State. Like that's if you come out of that with 2 or even 3, obviously 3 wins, but like then you're nobody's going to question your strength of schedule. And so I think, like you said, there's no incentive to schedule Virginia right now. And then when you factor the college football playoff format discussion, like it's not settled kind of going forward. What does it look like? That makes a big difference. And so, this strategy could shift, I think, in the coming years. Like there's no reason they can't change these games again. And Scott Tolson said they're going to be nimble. They're going to make changes. Like if, the college football playoff format becomes, 5, the 5+11, where there's the 5 conference championships and then 11 at-large bids, you want to stack your resume a little more, or try to, because that's when you're going to be judged against these teams. Whereas if you're 4 automatic qualifiers and you're just really kind of judged on your, Big Ten record, you can then, increase your schedule too, because you don't have to worry about it. So it's an interesting sort of back and forth and give and take.
Curt Cignetti, this time a year ago, he was doing all the interviews. He was, and I mean this all as a positive. It was great fun. And it's what Indiana needed, Mike. He clearly had – Mike Nizilik is our guest from down in Bloomington at the Herald Times. Cignetti had this salesman bravado about him and this confident swagger that people were like, really? The guy from James Madison coming to Indiana? And it worked, right? It worked. Some might say he went to the confidence roulette wheel one too many times with the pre-Notre Dame appearance on game day. But is Curt Cignetti in year 2 any different in terms of approach than he was in year 1?
Not that we've seen. I mean, I think a good test will be this next week in Vegas when they have Big Ten Media Days, and obviously he had some fun there, in Indianapolis last year, and stole the show a little bit in terms of going up to the podium and like you said, bringing that bravado and swagger and chiding kind of reporters for picking them to finish second to last in the conference, and noticed he's been there before, and he noted that he's been there before and ended up winning the conference every time they did that. And so I think, but he's also pretty savvy in the sense that, and that was something I was going to kind of write about too for next week, in the sense that like he uses those appearances, uses these things to sort of get messages he wants. Like one of the things that he really focused on last year was sort of igniting the fan base, trying to sort of get them sort of energized, because he felt that he did not like the vibes when he kind of landed in Bloomington, and he has not lied, he's been very honest about like when he landed on the plane, he got kind of really upset with people like, saying like, well, like 6-6 maybe, or like we're just a winning record. Like, he just didn't like that. And so we'll see what his message is. He's kind of focused kind of this off season on turning the page and sort of obviously, kind of focusing on this season as unique and not connected to last year. And but we'll see what he wants to say or what's on his mind kind of in a couple of days here.
Mike, this particular team, let's go to the quarterback position. I had led off the show by talking about the fact that I just saw an article, I found it interesting, that was listing, I think it was ESPN, was listing potential number 1 overall draft picks in the NFL draft upcoming, which is absurd to go to at this point, except for that it gives one a barometer of the talent level that is anticipated to kind of break through for programs. And it had Fernando Mendoza, the transfer from California, listed as an outside possibility as a number 1 overall pick. In other words, this guy clearly is on the radar of being an established quarterback for Indiana. Their offense from a year ago to now will look similar or different in what ways based on, assuming he's healthy, him playing quarterback for them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know that there is a difference that Mendoza brings, but I think it's more sort of on the margins of like what they did with the skill players. Like they added a bunch of running backs with pass catching skills. They didn't have that last year. The slot receiver position they sort of downplayed in the transfer portal, where they had those 3 guys that they rotated last year. So I think that looks different. So a lot of it is on sort of like the pieces around Mendoza that I think changes the game plan or changes the focus. For Mendoza specifically, like there wasn't a throw Curtis Rourke couldn't make. Like the coaching staff wasn't limited at all by his arm. And so like I think there's some sort of like Curtis Rourke erasure here. I mean, he was like a fourth, we did go in the draft and it was an NFL prospect that was recovering from a torn ACL. So you can kind of see that if he was well thought of. But I think the difference between him and Mendoza is and this is something that like almost all his teammates brought up, like the first thing when you talk to him about Mendoza was his mobility and his sort of escapability. And like, I don't expect Indiana to suddenly run like a ton of design runs and put him at risk, but like they're going to move the pocket around. And they did not almost at all last year with Curtis Rourke. I think they brought up a stat where it was like 0.25% of the time they like shifted him around the pocket and moved things. Like expect that number to be a lot larger. Like they're going to put teams on their back of their heels and put pressure on them by moving Mendoza around. He's going to be a real threat. Those read option plays become a lot different when you've got a guy that can really move. And so Curtis Rourke, we didn't know at the time, obviously was playing on a bum leg. And so it made sense where, he was very judicious about when he ran out of the pocket. Mendoza's not going to have that sort of, same sort of hesitancy because he has some wheels. And I think that will change IU's offense. I think Kurt Signay talks about how like 70 to 80% of the system carries over year to year and 20% is what you tweak. And so that 20%, when you look at Mendoza's sort of mobility, I think that's where you kind of see you're going to see tweaks to what they ran last year versus Curtis Rourke.
Indiana gets underway, kicking things off August 30th, which will be here before you know it, against Old Dominion, followed by Kennesaw State and Indiana State. Then it is Illinois to open Big Ten play. Mike, appreciate it. I know it's been a busy time, and it's about to get busier, but certainly appreciate you making time for us.
Absolutely, anytime.
That's our buddy from the Bloomington Herald-Times, Mike
Nizilik,
joining us on the guest line. All right, we have tickets to give away, do we not, Eddie?
Yeah, the Offspring, Jake, next Saturday, Ruoff Music Center.
Our friends at Live Nation have hooked us up with a pair, and we will do that. Are we going to do this with Get to Know Your Listener a little bit on the other side?
Si, senor.
239-1070, the telephone number. July 26th, Offspring, your chance to be there at 239-1070 next. Eddie, what's your favorite month of the or period of the college football season?
Ooh. September.
I was going to say, I think that's right. Like right when the weather starts to turn a little bit. October's cool too, right?
September's the greatest, Jake. It's the greatest. There's no question.
Separation Saturday's always fun, where you've got 8 or 10 games of ranked teams that are challenged.
It's September. There's no question.
Is your birthday in September?
That's exactly right, Jake.
When is your birthday? September what?
I'll give you 3 guesses.
21st.
Close.
By the way, I will let you know. Do you have the breaking news sounder by chance? My cousin will attest to this. As a matter of fact, there's video proof. Once again, for the 7th time in my illustrious career with this game, I was able to, with a woman who was expecting, play guess the due date, and I got the due date exactly correct on the first guess. I said August 18th, and her eyes got the size of silver dollars. She's like, how in the world did you know that? I'm like, I'm just good. August 18th, exactly correct. I'm going to guess, Eddie, that your birthday. I should know this because I think you take your birthday off, don't you?
I think I did last year.
29th.
No.
What is it?
24th.
Exactly 3 weeks after my birthday, by the way.
And exactly 4 days before my parents' anniversary.
Well, congratulations to them. Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
All right, so who do we have lined up for Get to Know Your Listener?
We have John, Tom, Justin, and Tim.
Okay, so are we just going to roll a die here and decide which number we're going with?
I will let you do the honors. I chose yesterday.
I don't know the number, the phone lines that they're on, so I'm just going to sit here right now and do boom, boom, boom. I'll go with line 2. Who's on line 2?
Tom.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hey, Jake. Doing good.
Tom, you sound excited to be on the program. Have you called the show before?
Oh, no, but we've spoken before.
We have?
We have a mutual friend in the Washburn family.
Are you a debt collector?
We spoke about. I know. We spoke about the Washburn family.
Yes.
We're mutual friends.
I do know Brad Washburn, one of the Darb, as we call him, one of my best friends growing up. Fabulous family. His dad was the principal at Eastwood Middle School. Tom, if you don't mind me asking, even though we played this before, obviously, when you and I had spoken, a little get to know your listener variation. I'm going to do a curveball with it here, Tom.
Okay.
And that is when you look back and you think about the very first, whether it be NFL, NBA, or Major League Baseball, the very first game that you ever attended in person at the professional level was which sport and what team?
I think it was the Cubs in baseball.
Okay. And if you had to guess, can you tell me a single Cub that would have been playing in that particular game?
That would have been the era of Jody Davis.
Okay, nice. That's a deep pull there, right? Jody Davis, as Harry Carey used to sing,
Jody Davis.
the catcher without a beard, right?
I went to see him.
Okay. Now, Tom, if you were able to, if the genie was able to pop out of a bottle and allow you to predict, to select any one team to win a professional or collegiate championship in the upcoming season, you could pick one team, the team that you would select, not that you because you think they could win, but the team that you would most want to see win a title would be who?
Well, they came really close. It would definitely be the Fighting Irish. When I was a young man, my dad took me to a game every year. So.
Okay, Notre Dame. And your anticipation for Notre Dame this year is what?
If they get quarterback play, high. But I don't think they've had an excellent quarterback for.
Now you mentioned
when your best quarterback was Joe Montana, that's going back a ways.
Okay, you mentioned that your dad took you to games. Is your dad still with us by chance?
No, he passed on. We never had a ticket. We just went through the tailgate, and somebody was drunk enough to give us a couple tickets.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Now, do you have kids of your own?
I do have one son.
Okay. And if you take your son to a Notre Dame game to carry on the tradition, when you're introducing your son, you know what way other than my son that you can introduce him to people?
Just James?
You can simply say, this is in fact the offspring. And you will actually be seeing the offspring coming up on the 26th of July. Tom, enjoy. I appreciate you listening to Query & Company, and that is how we play the always popular Get to Know Your Listener.
I saw that one coming a mile away.
I mentioned off the top of the show, I did some research on this. There was a report out there revolving around the Indiana Pacers and the possibility of an acquisition, and I thought it was probably preposterous. And I asked around, and I think there is a little bit of credence to it. Tony East will join us next. I will run it past him, and we'll get his thoughts. I had mentioned, and by the way, that's going to be fun later today at 3 o'clock. Eddie Garrison and Marc Dykton will be filling in for JMV. One of the things that they may discuss is what I mentioned off the top of the program. And there's a deep history with this particular player, I realize. And when I first saw word, and it was like a Facebook post somebody had saying that the Indiana Pacers were contemplating the return of Victor Oladipo. And my initial reaction, my initial thought, quite frankly, was I saw that and I thought, and I know that there are those within what we do that always want to discredit blogs or podcasts or whatever else. And you know what? The reality is, because you have a lot of people that are just doing both of those things without, just on speculation or hope or whatever. And it's very easy for me to sit here and say, like, well, unless you're on a radio station or you are, writing for a major outlet, you don't have credibility. Look, it's 2025. I mean, you got to wake up. Like, there's oftentimes those sources are as plugged in as anybody else, if not more so. And those outlets, the media is shifting into that realm. I totally get it and understand it and respect it. So when I saw this thing about Victor Oladipo, my initial assumption was, yeah, this is ridiculous, but I'm going to do my due diligence because that's my responsibility. And I asked around people that I trust and people that I know, fully expecting that they were going to say exactly that and laugh and be like, yeah, come on. And when I threw it out there, the response I got was, well, that would make for an exciting topic on your radio show. And I said, I understand, but I don't want to go there if it's totally non-credible. And the response that I got was, I think every rock is turned and every bit of due diligence is done. And that is not to say that there is any sort of an advancement in conversation between Oladipo and the Pacers, but would the Pacers have an exploration of Oladipo to see what fuel is left in the tank? Yes. I actually believe they would. And that they feel they owe it to themselves to take a look at what's there. It doesn't mean that they are doing it with the intention of advancing beyond that. But joining us now on the guest line to talk not only WNBA All-Star break, but I'll begin with exactly that, Tony East joining us. Tony, I was a little surprised. I thought when I asked around that I would immediately get a chuckle. And in asking around, I don't think that it's anything like super advanced, but I do think that the Pacers would be willing to see what is there with Victor Oladipo, who has been working out and is apparently in desire of a comeback. What say you?
Yeah, you should check in on everybody who is a basketball player and might be good for their team. I have no idea why this makes sense for them. A 33-year-old who wouldn't be in their rotation doesn't make any sense to me. But check in, see how he's doing. If he's open to being your 11th man coming off of major serious injuries, I guess poke around on it. But it makes no sense to me.
Well, you don't think that if he is healthy, and he's been working out and he's in shape, and let's say he's 80% of what he was in prime, do you think that he could spell some minutes for the gap year, I'm going to use that term in air quotes, that are vacated by Tyrese Halliburton and the rotation thereof, and offer them some juice?
He wasn't 80% of what he was in his prime with the Heat after one injury, so I would be very surprised if that was the case. But, yes, if that is possible, yeah, explore that player. That guy would probably play on this Pacers team, I would say, I guess, in the gap year. I don't know what that would look like 2 years from now. But,
right.
If he is able to be that level of healthy or effective again this many years later, then, yes, explore it. But that doesn't – logic to me dictates that this doesn't make a ton of sense, even though it is – if he is that good, it's plausible they would explore it, obviously.
When you look, Tony, at the center position, and in two things, the Halliburton injury and the Turner departure. The dust has settled on both. You now begin the process of moving along. And what we know is that the Pacers are going to play this upcoming season kind of center by committee. Do you believe that when they look further beyond that and you begin looking at what you have in store for when Halliburton comes back to be ready to go and return him to, do you think that, A, they believe that there is a move that will be made still for an upgrade at that position for Indiana a year from now, or B, that they have some young pieces at the center position that are intriguing to them, notably Isaiah Jackson, that may actually be the Miles Turner replacement, and they simply want to verify if that's the case this coming season by evaluating?
Yeah, I would personally kind of assume A would be the more likely plan. And I mean, kind of honestly, anyone's answer to this question is how much belief they have in the guys the Pacers have on their team at that spot now for this committee approach, right? If you think J Huff can be awesome or Isaiah Jackson can be starter quality, then you probably think that it's B, and that they have that starter on their team now. They just have to figure out who it is. And the Pacers do deserve a lot of credit for, what their player development program has become, right? Basically, everybody who's come in, who's young from a different team, has become better with the Pacers at some skill or another the last couple of years and made the team better as a result. And in that way, maybe B is the answer. They try Huff as a starter. They try Jackson as a starter. They give Wiseman some burn. One of those guys pops, that's their starter. But I think it's more likely, just given the landscape of the league, the injury history of those guys, their careers to this point, that they would need an external player or addition to be that center in the future. And they could find that out this year by trying the committee approach. And, maybe that becomes a trade thing. Maybe that's a draft thing. Maybe a combination of the two. Who knows? But that is, I think, more likely and more reasonable. Now, doing that is hard, right, with their resources to trade in the future. But I think that is the more likely way that they figure out this year what the skills are that match up with the centers by committee that they're going with and how those players overlap with the talent they currently have. And then a year from now, they can figure out if they need to trade for somebody somewhere else or scoop up a free agent, or if they can really just run with these young guys, and this committee approach will be the answer. And Carlisle's done the committee thing before in Dallas, so he is more prepared than anyone to figure out how this works.
What, if anything, jumped out at you about Summer League and what you saw?
Furphy. I mean, if you told me before Summer League to describe the best possible Johnny Furphy Summer League, it's not that far off of what we've seen. I think that making more threes would be part of the equation for him, and I don't know his exact three-point percentage, but it's not awesome, right? He had one game where he missed every single one he took, but the drives to the cup, mixing a combination of finesse and actual strength and power from a guy that looks very young, but the fact that he's developed his athleticism and size and added weight without taking away any of his skill has been so impressive. Like, he's just sizing guys up, getting to the cup. He's taking off the dribble threes and knocking them down enough. His defense, cutting off good players like Buzella, stands out in the last game, has been really impressive. The team had said last year, like before this summer experience, that there was some belief that Furphy could develop into a rotation player for the Pacers, and those noises have popped back up this summer league. And obviously, it's summer league. You don't want to get. He's been as good as they could have hoped, and most importantly to me, added new skills. Quentin Jackson was obviously exceptional in his lone appearance. I still think he's top 5 in scoring per game among all summer league players. I hope we get to see him one more time, because it's possible to be he's auditioning for a standard contract if they need a third point guard on the team. So we'll see. He was great in his only appearance. Everybody else has been a mixed bag of, clearly a little better than last year, but maybe not quite adding something new or doing something so special. But I think those two guys kind of rose up the most to me in a way that stood out, because they could have actually meaningful roles this season if there's injuries or if the team goes certain directions.
Do you think Furphy, when you look at Tony East is our guest, joins us on the guest line here. When you think about Johnny Furphy, as he evolves here, do they see him more as a wing scorer from like a 3D guy, like a 3 and defend guy, or is it strictly that they believe, because I've heard that they really like his length defensively and that anything offensively is gravy. What do you hear in terms of what they see for him?
I've also heard that defensive length and ability they like. Like, he just plays with, it's really interesting. Like, someone described this to me a couple years ago where, like, Jarris has this crazy size and Furphy does not. Furphy plays like it looks like Jarris should, right? Like, he's so physical and he's disruptive and he's, strong and knocks you off your spot. And, like, the way I noticed that the most last year was rebounding. Like, he would knock guys off their spot and go get it. He was so impressive in that way. And so I think they believe in his defense, and the fact that he's developing like actual handle and actual actual offensive skills. And, they've turned a lot of guys into decent to good shooters. To me, suggests that, yes, they can blend those two things. But I also think that the defensive stuff, the nose for the ball, the physicality, not being afraid of all that is what they're most excited about, and putting like that can play several positions, especially if he can do anything on offense.
Tony East, our guest, by the way, Locked On Pacers is where you can hear him. I saw, obviously, still doing a lot with WTHR, Forbes as well in covering the Pacers, and as well the Fever and the WNBA. So let's switch to that. They are at the All-Star break. We now know officially Caitlin Clark will not participate in All-Star activities as it is here in Indianapolis. When you look at that, Tony, and then you look at Tyrese Halliburton, and I think kind of what it took out of Tyrese Halliburton, truthfully, when he was kind of the de facto host of the NBA All-Star Weekend when it was here, even though I know it's very disappointing for Caitlin Clark fans and the WNBA in general to not have her participate, could this actually end up being a good thing for the Fever?
Yeah, it's possible. Like, she definitely needs time off, right? Like 100%. And, this is a good chance to get it. Like last year, she talked about that break being, the extent that she had a break, right, being a little bit of a reset for her. And mentally, like even more than physically, and she needs both right now, certainly, right? Like with all the injuries she's had this year and just with how crazy the season has been for the Fever, you really wonder what all that's going to look like. But
did we lose Tony, Eddie? Is once again our phone system going on the blink, Eddie?
I don't think it's us this time. I think this is Tony.
Really?
Oh, but having her in all this, I think is good. And, be a part of this. Like she said, she's going to attend the events is good, right? That'll still bring some buzz. It'll still bring her close to the event in her home city. Like she declined old events because she wanted to do it in Indy, but it's obviously a huge bummer that she won't participate. But obviously the right move for the Fever, who have had such a start and stop season. Like they absolutely need to figure out how to get her healthy.
That was seamless, Eddie, by the way. Seamless. Tony, we lost you there for a second, and then Eddie and I both were like, where did Tony go? And then when you came back, you were in mid-stride, and it was like you didn't even miss a beat. That was flawless. That was impressive.
I don't know what happened. My phone just decided to stop working for a sec, but then it came right back on, and I didn't even realize it happened. So
your phone's like
plugged
me.
Right on.
You would give at this point the Fever midterm grade. You'd give them what?
And it's tough because record-wise, worse than anybody thought, right? No doubt. I don't know how much better than this I thought they would be because I didn't have them as high as maybe everybody else, but certainly disappointing the way that it feels very 2 years ago Pacers to me in that at their best they can beat anybody, right? They've beaten Minnesota. They're still to this date the only team that beat Minnesota in Minneapolis. They beat the Aces, they beat the Liberty, they beat the Dream, right? Every good team they've played except they haven't played Phoenix yet. They've beaten, but they lose to Connecticut and they lose to the Valkyries and they lose to the Sparks. Like they can lose to anybody and beat anybody, which is exactly what happened with that Pacers team 2 years ago. And in some ways that's good if you have a high peak ready when the playoffs come around. Guess what? You're only playing good teams. But, it's been really strange how inconsistent they've been. And there's like a million reasons that could be the case, right? In and out Clark, in and out coaching, all sorts of stuff, right? And in and out Damiris Dantas, Sophie Cunningham, DeWanna Bonner situation. Like in that way, the way it's been so start and stop, I understand how they've been so inconsistent, but they have really got to find a way to get that consistency back, especially on the defensive end of the floor, because I think their offensive peak, they just have enough natural talent that it's going to be high. Unfortunately for them, they've got a guard, and they haven't been able to consistently. They were not good on defense last night. So that's just what's been hard for me to find a grade on it is at their absolute best. Hey, look at that. They're the only team that can beat some of these teams with any sort of consistency. On the other hand, they can lose to anybody, and now it's F. And so it's probably like a B- to me, just in the way that, man, is just having all sorts of trouble. It's probably a C+, B- to me, just in that it's been so start-stop, and they've kind of fought through that enough to still be in that, they could get the 4 or 5 seed at some point, but I would say more disappointing than not, even though they've dealt with so much to this point.
Tony, here's a really important question to round things out if your phone can withstand it. You ready?
Yes.
Critically important. I made a kind of a pact, an agreement, better way of saying it, with Shannon's nephew after actually going into Game 6, that if the Pacers won it all, that I would, with her nephew, get a Pacers tattoo. I have no tattoos on my body, right? For 2 reasons. Number one, like, it wasn't as in vogue when I was in my 20s and 30s. And number two, as I've always said, I can never rule out the possibility that I will be a fugitive of the law. And if that's the case, I don't want a tattoo, right?
Yeah.
But if I had to get a Pacer tattoo, which do you think would be the best? A, the current Pacer logo of the streaking basketball in the middle of the P. B, the old school Pacer hand logo. C, the block state of Indiana with the Pacer logo in it. Or D, Boomer.
No. Not C. I like the hand one a lot.
Yes.
I think that one's really cool. I kind of like that logo more than their current one, to the extent that even actually matters. So I would pick B, but a Boomer tattoo, man, that's some dedication right there.
Yeah,
that would take
it
forever.
is.
It's like, to detail that correctly would take a long time.
A dunking Boomer? I could probably do a dunk.
I used to find it so funny before games, like the Pacers team would be warming up and Boomer would be stretching. And like, for some reason, to me, you don't think about the fact that like the mascot has to warm up too and stretch, but there was Boomer stretching. I found that very funny.
Tony, it's the same Boomer that it's been. Do you realize that? Like, how impressive that is?
Yes, I know that like their identities are secret, but I've heard the Boomer is on the older side of mascot ages.
Yes.
Before, and it's been the same one for a very long time. Is that correct?
mean, I can tell you, 5 years older, I think, than myself. And when you think about the physical nature of what they do, that is really impressive. Now, you also get the cat years factor of it, right? So maybe then, I don't know if that makes it older or younger, but still, very impressive. All right, lastly, I've asked this question to a gabillion people. I'm going to ask it to you and put you on the spot. You have to close your eyes so you cannot look. You ready?
Okay.
Wait, you're not driving, right?
That's right.
No.
Tony, make sure he's not driving. Okay. The old school Pacer logo of which we speak, Tony, left or right-handed?
I think you can see a thumb, so that'd be a left hand, yeah?
That is correct. Although, oddly, only 3 fingers. And just so you know, true story, the art design, when they did it, the artist had the photo of a hand holding a tennis ball. And what you are seeing actually in the logo was originally drawn as a tennis ball with the hand itself. There's your random trivia of the day.
Why? What? Then maybe that would explain the 3-finger grip, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at it, then it makes sense. When you look at it, you're like, you know what? That is a tennis ball. Go figure. All right, Tony, we appreciate it. As always, enjoy the WNBA All-Star Weekend as it is upon us now. But we know Caitlin Clark, no activity in it. But Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston will be part of the game itself, and I know you'll have coverage of all of it.
Yes, thank you for having me, guys. It's fun as always.
Tony East joining us. We still have tickets, by the way. Speaking of basketball, we have tickets to give away for the TBT, and this is going to be of the courtside variation, correct?
Yeah.
It is the Query Challenge, which means that I have to come up with a trivia question as it relates to the history of Indiana basketball. This can
probably get one of the brain droppings, right?
That is correct. You know, I come up with these trivia questions off the top of my noggin. Did you know that?
I did know that.
I think I have a pretty good one here.
Noggin, yeah.
For this one. I do have, you know what? I do have I shaved my head. I haven't done it in a couple of years. But in preparation of if I ever go bald,
yeah,
I would shave my head in the summertime.
Yeah.
And one thing that there's a lot of things about me that people compliment me on, but one of them is that they say I have a very well-shaped head. They're like, like perfectly round, like nice texture, all of it.
Texture?
Yeah.
Okay.
People like to come up and like rub on it when I have it shaved. I mean, honestly.
Jake, they do that with almost every bald person who seems somewhat nice and not overly friendly.
That is true. But I'm telling you, like, people, I mean, they say, they're like, a lot of times they ask me, people will say, like, have you ever thought about being like a scout model?
Oh, my gosh.
It's true. But somebody just sent me a picture, by the way, of their tattoos on their leg, and I can see a Homer Simpson. It looks like a Ghostbusters, and then right there in the middle. That's pretty solid. Pretty solid. Pacer tattoo on the leg, and it is the old school. I think you got to go with the old school, right? Then the other question becomes, where would I get it? Where would I get the tattoo? Would it be... Do you have a tattoo, Eddie?
Nope.
Did you ever get anything pierced?
No.
That's
my knowledge.
When I was a senior in high school, not to your knowledge, okay. Spring break my senior year, I got my left ear tattooed. Pierced. And I had it for like 4 days in spring break. And there was no way I was going to wear that when I came back home, right?
Uh-huh.
My dad would have had nothing to do with that. Then, and this is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to admit. My freshman year of college, myself and 2 other guys got a Jayhawk earring.
What?
Pierced into our ear.
What?
Because we're like, yeah, man, we go to Kansas. So we got a little Jayhawk. I had a little earring. It was a little Jayhawk.
No way.
Yeah, I swear.
You have any picture proof of this?
I don't think I have any pictures of me wearing. What's funny is this, honestly.
I'm not going to go over there and fear earlobe either like you are.
Well, it is weird. If you get your ear pierced, even though it's been 30-some years ago, on occasion I can still feel the scar tissue in my earlobe of where it was pierced. There is probably a picture somewhere, yes, of me wearing an earring that is the Jayhawk. On a 1 to 10 scale, I'd like for you to tell me, Eddie, how embarrassing I should find that I admit to the fact that I have that.
You're in the second half century of your life, Jake. I don't think you care anymore.
That is true.
If you were probably in the first half century of your life, then maybe a little bit.
My dad, when I called home at one point, you know how it is. When you're in college, it's so funny if you go to school out of state. Back in those days. Now, this isn't the case now with cell phones.
I'm sorry, what?
Back in those days. What's that?
Try it again.
I said when you were in college, back in those days, if you went to school. That's back in my day. If you went to school out of state, with your parents, it was the same routine in America. It was the dad was always like, give us a call on Sunday. Let us know how things are going. And the second you get on the phone, your mom wants to gab forever, and your dad's in the background like, oh, we're paying long distance here. Let's go. And your dad gets on. He's like, how's the money holding out? You've been to class? Okay, great. Thanks. Bye. But my dad, I think I had told my sister about the Jayhawk earring.
That's pretty much like any dad versus mom conversation, no?
Totally. It's all business, right? My dad got on the phone and said, your sister Megan tells me that you got your ear pierced. And I said, and I was kind of quiet. And my dad said, and I told your sister that I didn't think that was the case because I think you know too much about Vincent Van Gogh and what would happen when you come home. So my earring lasted for like a half a semester, and then it came out, and eventually it healed. And thank goodness I did not stick with the Jayhawk earring. You don't see like people getting their ears pierced as much anymore, do you?
I don't know. I don't really check out people's earlobes.
I mean, it was definitely a thing at that time. Tattoos were not as big a thing when I was in college, but I understand now, obviously, and clearly it is. All right, so we have the TBT tickets to give away. This is going to be, actually, I think it begins tomorrow night, does it not? Opening rounds.
Yeah.
This is where you have the Assembly Ball. You also have All Good Dogs, which is the former Butler team. Games are being played at Hinkle, and we have tickets to give away for it. We will do it with an Indiana trivia question. 239-1070, the telephone number. Line up now, and we'll do it, the Query Challenge, next. All right, so we have tickets to give away for the TBT, that is the TBT tournament at Hinkle Fieldhouse, which actually gets underway tomorrow night. But this goes on for, 6 days. So we have courtside seats to give away. It includes former Indiana players, former Butler players as well. Those who have called in at 239-1070, I actually noticed, and I'm going to do this, and I hope people can appreciate this, just because yesterday I enjoyed when he called in, and when I gave a trivia question, he knew the correct answer, but the correct answer had already been given. So I feel like I should give another opportunity here to our friend Leo.
Way to have a
who
heart,
joined.
Jake. Way to have a
nice
heart.
guy. Leo is back. Leo, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Leo, yesterday you'd mentioned, by the way, that I believe you said that Wednesdays are your day off. Was that correct?
Wednesday's my day off. That's why I was listening.
Okay,
yes.
and I did not ask this yesterday. You don't have to say the specific company, but in what line of work are you in where Wednesdays are your day off?
The United States Post Office.
Oh, you know what? You did mention that. I think you did mention that yesterday. Okay. And is it true? Is it true actually that rain, sleet, or snow does not stop you?
That's right.
Okay. Well, I like that.
Get it right.
All right, Leo. I have come up with a trivia question for you here, and I want you to see if you can. And I'm going to give you two possibilities of a correct answer, Leo. So you can go with one of two answers here. You ready?
I'm ready.
I happen to be wearing today, for no reason other than it was in the closet and it was sitting right before me, and I put it on. I am wearing a T-shirt today for Indiana State for their 1979 Final Four run. It's not from 1979, but it's made to look that way. In 1979, of course, Indiana State entered the Final Four unbeaten. Penn was also undefeated in the Final Four that year. But I would like for you to tell me one of two teams, Leo. Can you tell me either who Indiana State defeated in the regional finals to make the 1979 Final Four, or the team that they had to defeat, who was a powerhouse of that era in the 79 Final Four?
Well, I know Michigan State won it.
Yep.
I know they were 33-0 when they faced Michigan State, and lost, became 33-1 that night, Monday night.
Who did they beat for win number 33?
Oh my goodness!
Iconic coach whose son overtook the program, and they really cashed in on loading up on players. What's that?
DePaul Blue Demons.
Leo, I knew you'd come through for me, brother. I knew you'd come through. Leo, that is correct. And yesterday, because you knew right off the top of your head the correct answer that we had in the challenge that I presented yesterday, the fact you knew Chad Tucker, man, I mean, you know your basketball, Leo. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
And it's not my favorite sport.
What's your favorite sport?
I love baseball.
Really? Who's your team?
The Cincinnati Reds.
Big Red Machine, huh?
Big Red Machine. I love that era. Ooh, Lord, I love that era.
How about this, Leo? Can you tell me, I believe this is correct. Can you tell me the only starter on the Big Red Machine to not make the 1976 National League All-Star team?
Wow, that's a good one. The only starter.
Good player, just not as good as the rest.
Was it Cesar Geronimo?
That is, in fact, correct, Leo. That is, in fact, correct. Leo is on it, man. All right, Leo, we'll get your information. We'll put you on hold, and congratulations. Thanks for calling in. We will continue to do the Query Challenge.
You know what would be fun? Getting you, Leo, and Scott Johnston together for a beer.
That would be great.
You guys would never stop talking about everything. You go back to the 1930s, especially with Scotty and his knowledge.
You know, Scott Johnston, Scott Johnston, that works at this radio station and has been a part of, WIBC and then obviously the Fan since its inception. Scotty Johnstoney, as I call him. Scott Johnston is one of those guys that every place needs. I have always said, no matter where you work, no matter what line of work you're in, if you're listening to me right now and you're in an office setting, I know a lot of people work from home now, but every company needs that person that I call the copy guy. And I don't mean it because they're like Rob Schneider and Saturday Night Live. I mean it because You've all been in that situation where you go and you got to get something copied or faxed in the old days or scanned, whatever it might be, and it's jammed or the machine is, quote, warming up, and you're like, what is with this thing? And you want to kick it and get it going, and you can't figure out what's happening. And you're all standing around looking, and somebody says, well, where is Scotty? He knows how to fix this stuff. Because they just know where every body's buried and where every single thing within the company is, and they are the person that literally everything runs through. And so long as they work there, you're like, well, I mean, I guess I don't need to know everything because Scotty's here. That is 100% Scott Johnston at this radio station. The absolute behind-the-scenes most valuable player that just has every answer and not flaunting it. But when you go to them, knows every single thing that goes on. And behind-the-scenes hero. Every place needs a person like that. Scott Johnston also has, and it's truly remarkable, nearly every day when he comes to work is wearing a sports jersey and then a hat that accompanies said jersey in some way or form. So, in other words, he might wear an old San Diego Chargers jersey with a Padres hat or a Seattle Mariners jersey with like a Seahawks hat. And if there's something going on in the news of that city, that's the jersey that he wears that day. It's remarkable. But when I went to the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame, along the main street in Cooperstown, it's like being in Brown County, except for that every single store is centered around the history of baseball. And that includes if there is a baseball cap to be purchased of any team historically in the history of baseball, it can be purchased on Main Street in Cooperstown. And I thought to myself, this is the largest collection of hats in any one place outside of Scott Johnston's apartment, without question, right? Marc Dykton's in here and is smirking, and I think logged into JMV's login because he's filling in for JMV today. Anything unusual pop up when you did so, Marc?
Lots of Claudia Schiffer for some reason. Not sure what's going on here.
Okay. You're wearing a Ball State Chirp Chirp shirt. You did not go to Ball State, right?
No, UIndy, but shout out to the shop because they have great shirts, and I don't
Roll
care.
Hounds.
I don't care what they have on them. I'm going to buy a shirt.
Okay.
Good to see you, by the way.
Thank you. It's been a while since you've seen me. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I sent out a tweet. I said, hey, Eddie and I are hosting JMV, and I'm going to have kind of a Kevin and Query reunion with Jake without the dead weight. So,
fair enough. Where's your little bowl of Cocoa Puffs? Do you still do that?
I haven't done that in a while. That was back in the early days, back when I had less kids and more time. I don't have time for cereal now.
How many kids do you have now?
3.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, 3.
Only 2 of them usually are loudly screaming in the background if I call you for anything.
Oh, man, I feel so bad, too. 'Cause I'm like, Jake probably thinks this is a madhouse in here, which it is. But, even more so when they're banging on the door, you think I'd, lock them in the crawl space or something.
My buddy Byron, he's got 3 kids of his own, and then he got married, and she's got 3 kids. It's like the Brady Bunch. Every time I call him over there, it's like Children's Palace at his place.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get it, right?
It happens. They have the same lawn, too?
What's that?
Same kind of lawn?
What's that?
The Brady Bunch lawn.
Yes, they have an AstroTurf backyard, which is very
That was
strange.
the greatest thing when I was younger. I'm like, I would love AstroTurf, and my dad's like, no way in hell.
And a teeter-totter, despite the fact that the kids are 15, which is weird.
Hey, Greg need to get some bounces in.
That's right. We'll come back. We'll hand it off to Marc and Eddie and find out what they've got planned on the big program next. Great song. Fabulous song. If you are just joining the program today.
Where have you been?
Thank you, Eddie. Caitlin Clark, via social media, announcing that she will not participate in all-star activities for the WNBA All-Star Game as it now moves its way to Indianapolis. Marc Dykton, who is, along with Eddie, going to carry you home until 6 o'clock today. You just came in from the circle and said they already are starting to put their stamp on it from the WNBA standpoint, correct?
Yeah, looks awesome out there. There's a giant, just like big old signature thing that says WNBA All-Star Game 2025 right on Monument Circle with the monument in the background. They're setting up different kinds of basketball hoops. I assume people can shoot hoops at some point. And there's also kind of like, you worked at MTV back in the day. Remember the MTV Jock Jams where they had the Rock and Jock with the multiple basketballs? Hoops, they have that going where there's like 3 basketball hoops in a row, and it's different logos of each team in the WNBA.
That's cool.
It looks very cool. I can't wait to see how it all comes together. But yeah, they're setting up today. Courts all over the place and murals. I saw an Angel Reese one right outside this building. So
that's
they're
not
setting
polarizing at all.
I know, and it's right on the side of our building.
So the two of you are going to carry this home from 3 until 6. We have Caitlin Clark discussion.
Yeah, we're going to try.
Eddie, you had a poll earlier of would you be interested in a return of Victor Oladipo if you were a Pacer fan? I think somebody has a good point that says I'd be much rather interested in Edmund Sumner. I thought it was too bad when Edmund Sumner got hurt because he was really starting to show something, I thought. So far, do we have results of said poll, Eddie?
Right now, 70-30 with just over 200 votes in.
70-30 which way?
_company. 70% of the votes say no. 30% say yes. And some of the comments, absolutely not. Are you insane?
Yeah, his departure was not, he did not handle it the best way.
Not at all. We talked about this on the morning show. You add him, who are you getting rid of? Because they're at like a full roster, are they not? Like, I'm pretty sure they're at
They have
max.
one spot
So
open.
who are you getting rid of? And also, do you really think Oladipo, his mid-30s, is a long-term, like he's going to stick around for multiple seasons? I can't imagine that being the case.
I mean, it clearly is a, again, when I saw it, when I saw the report of it, my initial reaction was, this is preposterous. This is, I mean, this should be laughed at.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I asked around, basically what I was told was, look, don't read too heavily into it, but you analyze every possibility. You look at, you overturn every rock, and yes, every team will be looking to see if he is indeed wanting to make a comeback, where he is, how healthy he is, and what is left in the tank. Doesn't mean that it goes beyond the exploration, right?
Right. Hopefully. I mean, he is the favorite on the Vegas odds if you're that kind of a degenerate that you're gambling on where Victor Oladipo's next destination is. The Pacers are the favorite, but yeah, I mean, they can turn over every leaf that they can. Obviously, they're going to need help, but I'd much rather see, Nemhard or I'd like to see them develop more in that role in their natural positions, or see Mathurin thrive rather than a retread of Victor Oladipo.
I'll be honest. It seems to me, it feels to me like it was a million years ago when he played here. You know what I mean? It's almost like so much has happened since then that it's almost like a forgotten era. Maybe that's just me.
No, it does seem like it's a long time ago. Like, who else is coming out the gate now?
I mean,
It's Dr. Dunk. Here he comes. It's like, what? It's kind of like it's a name from such a way back when that
it feels that way, doesn't
how many
it?
Coaching,
it's
how many
not really...
coaches ago was that even? 4? 3, 4?
Yeah, I mean,
it's been a while.
And there just is so much. You literally almost feel like saying, "Hey, you know what? We appreciate the sentiment, but we're good. A lot's happened since you were here last. No hard feelings. You're not the same player, but we're good.
Mm-hmm.
We're just there's nothing left to hold on to here.
You want to dip your toe in the water and just get a conversation going, fine. But yeah,
I mean, if suddenly the guy is able to return back to 29-year-old self, and how many guys at 33 years old with 2 devastating injuries can do that?
Right.
I mean,
not many.
But everybody in fantasy football, you always have that guy, and all of you listening have been that person at some point, where you get some player that you are still convinced can play, and you just are ruling out the fact that you're going off of a 5-year ago version of them.
Damn it, David Johnson can still play.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or,
This is the year for Kyle Pitts.
I'm sure there were people late in the year, late in his career, that were like, oh, no, like I'm telling you, Adrian Peterson still has something left. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I was late to like Le'Veon Bell. I remember he was like potentially going to sit out, and I drafted him like first overall. And like an idiot, he sat out all season long.
Yeah.
I'm like, you are a moron. I looked in the mirror daily and said, you are a moron. I do that usually when I wake up, but even more so after that draft pick.
What time do you normally wake up?
5:15, 5:30 in the morning. I've been up since then.
Really?
I know.
No nap?
No.
It's kind of
No.
hard to do with those screaming kids all over the place. Right?
That is true. That is very true. Yeah. I
All right.
close my eyes and I can wake up in a night terror.
So, again, what are the big discussions for you guys today?
Well, obviously, the Caitlin Clark news is at the forefront. She officially announced she's not going to play in the All-Star game or the three-point contest. I said disappointing but necessary. The Fever have long-term goals there. So, it's not a surprising move. I can understand why the league and the fans that came out from out of town are disappointed. But the Fever have long-term championship-wide goals, so you need Caitlin Clark as healthy as you can get.
How old are your kids again?
8, 6, and 4.
So does that mean that you have like a booster seat in the car?
I have multiple car seats. I don't have a booster seat, though.
Okay.
Not yet.
I didn't know if you needed to go get one because Eddie's sitting in this one for the next couple
He can
hours,
raise
right?
it pretty high, can he not?
I guess. This
I can
chair's...
go get one. I can unhinge it from the back and bring it in.
Everything's unhinged for the next couple of hours because Marc and Eddie will be in. John, back with you. John's back tomorrow, right?
Yep, he's on the road tomorrow.
And we will be with you at noon tomorrow as well. I thank you for listening to Query and Company.